Welcome to the Downtown, brought to you by Arlington Citizen Media. I am Daryl Smith Jr., and across the internet from me is...
I am Rody John, and across the interwebs for me is...
Amy.
In today's show, we talk to UTA Associate Professor Dr. David Arditi about his website, musicdetour.com, how technology isn't that great of an equalizer, as it was heralded for the independent musician, and his intro to pop culture class at UTA.
We also sit down with Craig Cummings from the Arlington Water about their award-winning Know Your H2O website, why Arlington's water does taste better, and how you can save money on your water bill.
So it has been a week, y'all.
What have you guys been doing?
Well, yesterday I did, in fact, walk in the Black Lives Matter peaceful protest that started on the Center Street Bridge over by the Highlands. I did not stay the entire time. However, from what I kept seeing, it did go all the way to the stadium, and then it made its way back to City Hall.
I was in my house and I kept going, I hear a lot more cop cars and sirens than normal. And I hear them all the time because I live right next to a hospital and the police station.
Right.
But I was like, man, what is going on? And that's when I jumped on Twitter and I was like, oh, damn. I was like, this is happening in my city, not just in Dallas or Fort Worth, the big cities. It's happening here.
It ended up being pretty large, considering, Arlington doesn't take up the most conversational space in our metroplex. But you have to remember, we are a city of
almost 400,000.
400,000.
Yeah, but that's still a lot. We're still
it's a lot.
One of the bigger cities in America. 47 there's a lot of cities in America. We're number 47, so that's a lot of people. And we are in the like I've said before, the Metroplex is actually called the Dallas-Fort Worth Arlington Metroplex, not just Dallas and Fort Worth. That's how big of a deal we are. So to see that happening in my hometown, it was I don't want to say it was jarring. It was just oh, yeah, okay, this is real. I'm not saying that it wasn't real before, but it's going beyond just big cities. It's going beyond the top 10 cities, it's all these cities are doing it, and places you never would have thought, like Arlington, Texas. What? Really?
And I do want to say, the Arlington Police Department did a really good job of giving the protesters a wide berth, and there really wasn't any problems until a very few people made some problems. But I do appreciate that the police department chose not to engage with the protesters and allowed them to make their point as long as they wanted to, wherever they wanted to.
Right.
Because, if the police aren't engaging, then the protesters aren't engaging.
Right.
And their voices are heard. And so I think that of Fort Worth and Dallas, APD honestly did it the best.
Yep.
So I was actually out at the one today that started at Levitt, and it was definitely the same situation. They were ahead of the what happened was it started at Levitt, and then we walked down Abram up to the police station, and at that point they started blocking off streets, right? They're blocking off Cooper so no one can come down. I think one cop actually took a knee with the people at the intersection at Division and Cooper. And then they went down and they blocked off the rest of Cooper. I mean, we marched down literally the busiest street in Arlington.
Oh, without a doubt.
I've never been able to say that I was, I walked in the middle of Cooper. I barely walk on the sidewalk on Cooper, let alone down the middle of the street. But you're saying there wasn't a lot of, there were a lot of chants, obviously, and a lot of anger. But there was a lot of solidarity, though. That was the thing. There was a lot of honking cars, as we were walking.
That's what I saw when I was there yesterday on 20. Both sides were just slow to crawl traffic, and everybody was honking their horns. And it was one car actually stopped and got out of his sunroof and was waving.
I saw that.
One semi stopped and
he honked his horn quite a bit, right?
Yeah. The entire time, he was doing a song. I think I'm not even sure.
Yeah. We had a couple of bigger trucks, not that big, but there were a couple bigger trucks that came down, kind of did the same thing down Abram today. But I would say the police did a very good job, and the protesters were, that we were giving water out, people were I'm not sure if inclusion brought stuff over, but like we got lemonade and like water and coffee from someone, and it came on a cart from across the street. So I don't know if that was inclusion, but like it was a really cool deal, even if it was just someone who's like, hey, I want to buy all these for that, for people. But we were giving out water bottles, and they were offering to the cops, because it's 90 something degrees outside. It's hot out there.
Right.
It's
June.
It is June. It is June in Texas. But yeah, it was very peaceful. I left because I had to do interviews, but I felt good about what I saw today and what I was a part of.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Outside of that, what has everyone been up to?
I swung by Tipsy Oak last week and delicious. Got me some poutine.
Did you eat there?
Oh yeah. Ate out on
Did
the
you eat on the patio or
we did.
Inside?
It was a nice cooler night in the mid 80s, so not terrible. But
right before it becomes unbearable any time of the day.
Right.
Even in like August, you're just at like 9 o'clock at night. You're like, it is entirely too hot. What is happening?
Yeah, do they have misters out there or anything yet?
They did not have misters yet, no.
Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should put misters in my backyard. Seeing as how I'm going to be spending a lot of time in my backyard for the foreseeable future.
I think those are sprinklers.
What?
Just if they're in your backyard, I feel like they'd be sprinklers, wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't I put a mister on my patio?
Because you got a hose.
I don't understand but misters are awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, misters are different than a hose.
Okay. Get the mister hose and it just goes.
You want me to like rig up like a handled hose with a mister option? Just one mister though. See, like the hose. What I'm talking about is a mister system.
Oh, I know. I understand.
A mister system.
Mister system.
But I do agree. Everywhere should have them. Downtown Arlington, if you're listening, please take note.
Yes.
Yeah, everywhere should have them. It would make me go a lot more places.
I agree. So speaking of places, and Rhodey went to Tipsy Oak. We've been seeing a kind of a soft opening of all these places. Where else has anyone else been to anywhere else? I haven't been anywhere else, so I don't have.
No, I haven't eaten inside anywhere. I'm kind of waiting. I'm still a little nervous about COVID.
Yep.
So no, I haven't eaten out anywhere yet, but I'm looking forward to it when I finally feel comfortable. I really am. And I'm trying to think of that like special place that I really want to hit up. And I'm thinking it's going to be seafood.
Ooh.
And so if anybody has any suggestions, please at us at Arlington Citizen Media on any of the social medias and let me know what you think should be my post-COVID first meal out.
ATX Citizen Media on Twitter. You'll find out at the end of this show. I've been at Cool K quite a bit, and they do keep the distance, which is nice.
Okay, good.
On Tap is doing the same situation. Legal Draft
is On Tap back open?
On Tap was open the entire time. You could just.
Oh, they were just doing. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Legal is doing still stuff to go, so that's good.
What about Division?
Division
will be doing stuff to go. They were doing to go.
Are they open though?
Oh yeah, they're open.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that the to-go business and being able to open it somewhat is able to help these businesses, because I want to see them stick around. And I think they're more important. I think those local businesses are more important now than ever. So you should obviously support them. Obviously we do. We love them. Rhodey probably spends half his paycheck at local businesses.
I do now.
He really does.
Rhodey's a model Arlingtonite.
I got a grabber where I can pick up trash now too.
See? Look at this guy.
That's true, he does. He picks up trash every night when he takes the dog for a walk.
Not every night.
I had a grabber, but it broke, and then I haven't bought another one because COVID.
Oh no. That'd be a good charitable thing that we should, look into in the future. Arlington Citizen Media trash grabbers.
Hey,
that
we could be the Arlington Citizen Cleanup Brigade.
Yeah.
The ACCB.
Are we also a sketch comedy group? Can we do that afterwards?
Yeah. No, it's a combo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're a comedy troupe while we pick up trash.
Right. Like it's like you do skits while you're like talking about how like the earth, you shouldn't be putting the trash on the earth, but we're gonna pick it up now. It's part education, part comedy, part helping the earth. I mean, this is a win. This is a triple whammy in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm really into this idea. Like, I
Me
think
too.
this
Like
is
it was a
how-
joke, but I really like it now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
this is how we end
Where's
up
the
with the
TikTok?
next It's Always Sunny show.
We'll start a TikTok. It's going to be the ACCB.
A lot of dancing.
Right. It'll be a lot of dancing, a lot of quick gags, sight gags. It'll be fun. Educational facts.
There you go.
I'm excited for that. Check that out. Coming soon.
Arlington Citizen Media on TikTok.
We are here with Dr. David Arditi. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
And you are a professor at UTA?
Yes.
All right.
Associate Professor of Sociology.
Awesome. I'm an alumni. I went there. I'm proud Maverick, Mav up. I just walked by the campus today. Beautiful as always. I guess our first question is, you've put together musicdetour.com, which is a website devoted to showcasing local music. Can you tell us more about the site, how it came to be, and how local musicians like help out, get on it,
Sure. Well, the idea of Music Detour came to me beginning when I was working on my PhD in Virginia. I started working on this project originally as a kind of gig database.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is a direction I want to go, but to kind of start off with, the original idea was there was no outlet where you could find all of the shows that were playing in the Washington, D.C. area.
Right.
So a friend of mine and myself, we started putting this together. We had all the bars that we could find schedules for. We would update that. And then a unique thing happens when you start doing that for local music. You begin to see these different connections. That one band, they might not share a stage together at a particular venue, but they've shared a stage in a different city. And you can begin to see these data connections. So using what people call big data, you begin to see those connections. And that helps advertise where people might go, oh, I'm looking for something to do on Friday night and I don't know where to go. And then you click on Music Detour. And at that time, it was this very robust database. I put that to rest, came down here, started working, and the opportunity presented itself to me to create a digital humanities project. Digital humanities is this kind of way of connecting the humanities and social sciences with the deployment of digital technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I had the idea of doing was to create a local music archive. And that is what musicdetour.com is today. It's the DFW Local Music Archive. And the plan is to do two things. Number one, to preserve local music. And number two, to provide a platform for local musicians. And we're very interested in having people who currently are gigging to get their music heard, people who may have played a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades ago, no longer play, and we don't want that music to be lost, so it's good to bring it in and have it recorded on our servers at the University of Texas at Arlington, and to be able to give this free platform to musicians so they can get their music out there without being exploited by some middleman.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really interesting idea. Just a little background on me that I'm sure our listeners already know, but I played in local punk bands and rock bands all in my teens and my 20s. So
I'd love to get your music.
I definitely have it. So because I kind of have I went through a very much more rudimentary, like I want to kind of catalog the scene. as it was. I have all these old music from like my punk rock days just sitting in a box, and like I think having it in a place like you're talking about for future generations or anyone that might be interested to know what was happening in the DFW music scene in 1987, what was popping, what was going on at the clubs, what was, having it all in one place, I think would be like super rad.
It would be, and that's the thing. I mean, if you play in a band and you could be playing a lot and influence a lot of musicians, and then you kind of go away, your music goes away. And those musicians might blow up. They might be the next Beatles, right? And they'll be like, oh, I was jamming to this punk band in Arlington, Texas, and that was my major influence. And then people go, what is it?
Yeah.
And there's no way, because of the way copyright works, to be able to access archived music like that. You need people's permission to put it online, and people might have that music, but they can't do anything with it.
Right. I'm excited to, see how that develops. And I clearly, if I have anything, I definitely will be getting in touch about that. But kind of pivoting for a second, you're the author of... Sure.
Before we get to that, in order to grow it, it would be great if people out there, if there's anybody in Arlington, DFW, that's interested in donating to the site, that not just music, we always want contributors, but if somebody wanted to be a sponsor of it,
right,
that would be fantastic, because right now we need funds to be able to pay for a graduate student to be able to take care of the website.
Okay. Well, how do people, is there a donation link like on the website? How do they donate, I guess?
There is, or anybody can reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find, and I can put them in contact with the right people at the university who can accept donations.
Cool. You're the author of I Take Over, The Recording Industry in the Digital Era. The book touches on how the recording industry got to where it is now, while also showing like the pitfalls. What do you think up-and-coming artists can do to help themselves in the future, in the digital era that we're in now?
Yeah. Well, I actually have the second edition of that book coming out, hopefully later this month.
Cool.
Digital technology presents a unique contradiction. On the one hand, people have been arguing since the 1990s that digital technology will be this kind of great leveler. And that in music, for instance, independent artists will be able to put their music out there and people will be able to hear it. We haven't seen that happen.
Right.
And what I Take Over actually argues is that there was a concerted effort by the major record labels to keep their artists profiting while keeping independent artists out of the music ecology, right? So the major labels have no problems in the iTunes era getting their music on iTunes and getting featured on the front page.
Right.
But if you're an independent artist, you got to go through a third party like CD Baby,
TuneCore, or any of those other places.
Exactly, in order to get your music online, and that means you have to pay them a fee, and then there's no way you're getting on the front page.
Right.
And the only way you're going to be found is being on the front page. And today, with the way Apple Music and Spotify Music works, is to be put on a playlist. Well, again, just like in the payola era, the major record labels are paying people to put them on playlists, right? So, again, if you're an independent artist, you're not going to get on these big playlists or even the little playlist or the automated playlist, because you don't have that kind of support behind it. So it becomes bifurcated. Then we get things like SoundCloud and Bandcamp, but really you're talking about a second tier. And yes, a couple people have really blown up on SoundCloud.
Sure.
And they're kind of held up as
See, it can happen to them. It can happen to anyone.
Right. But the exception really proves the rule.
Right.
There's millions of people on SoundCloud. Millions of people aren't getting billions of streams.
Right.
A couple people are getting billions of streams, and everybody else is in oblivion. There's no way for them to get connected. But going back to the problem with iTunes, I actually had a student of mine at UTA who, I think his name was Umair Ali. He had the number 2 ringtone on iTunes for like a year. And I don't know what kept happening. I was amazed at that time that people were still listening to it. And he goes, but something's going on with this because I can never get to number 1. He at the time, I think, I forget who it was. I think it was Taylor Swift, and I might have this backwards. But Taylor Swift was number 1, number 1, number 1. And then, what's his name? I can't think of his name. He's a Canadian rapper. Why can't I think of his name?
Right when you need it.
You would know it immediately, and it's terrible that I can't remember his name. But he dropped his album, and Drake.
Well, yeah, you're totally right.
I couldn't think of Drake's name.
Okay.
So anyway, Taylor Swift. Umair Ali is number 2.
Right.
Drake drops a new album. Taylor Swift gets bumped to number 9. And Umair Ali is still at number 2, and Drake is at number 1. So he was convinced that something was going on with the algorithm, that they were just, pushing the number 1 to be number 1, and then they push a new one. And it may have been Drake that was number 1 until Taylor Swift's album dropped. But that's the kind of problems you run into with iTunes, is that who benefits from the system? And it's not the independent artists.
Right. I mean, I know, like, when iTunes first came out, we I was in a rock band at the time. We were like, well, this is perfect. We can get on iTunes, pay one of these people and get on there. But it was like, no one listened. It was just your friends, and like, there was no way to get additional fans through that, like, platform. In ways that, they're talking like, oh, well, it's an equalizer. Well, no, not really, though, because clearly there's something that, like, the book talks about it and you're talking about here, something that makes it not actually the equalizer it should be.
Right. And all of this kind of ignores the fact that musicians are workers who are out there trying to make money. And for me, what I argue is this idea that you're going to get signed and you're going to make it big. I have a book coming out called Getting Signed at the end of the summer. It forces musicians to believe in copyright in this way while they ignore their labor rights. So, this all kind of started when I was working on my master's. The bass player I was playing with, he was friends with Victor Wooten. I'm not sure if you've heard of Victor Wooten.
No.
Victor Wooten is this phenomenal bass player. And he played in a group called the Bella Fleck and the Flecktones.
Sure.
Are you familiar with them?
I know who they are, and I probably heard a song or two.
So anyway, we drove out to Nashville and went to his rehearsal for the Victor Wooten band, and Victor Wooten had all his brothers playing with him. And I'm talking to his oldest brother, Reggie, about time travel. And I hear his other brother, Joe Wooten, who is a keyboard player, and he plays in the Steve Miller band.
Okay.
And I hear him going, I don't give a F about Napster. Napster gets my fans in shows. And at that time, Napster was already, this was like 2005, 2006,
sure.
This conversation. So Napster was gone. He was just talking about file sharing generally. And his point was that, and what he said is, I make 10 cents off the sale of every Steve Miller album. I don't care if people pirate that.
Right.
If that means that they're going to be listening to Steve Miller Band's music and show up at the show, that's how I make money, right?
Yeah.
So, but most musicians, especially starting out aspiring ones, are like, my copyright means something to me and it gives value and that's how I make money. It's actually not how you make money. Mm-hmm. It's actually the system that ends up dominating people and makes people poor playing music. If we didn't have that system, right, in the United States, we ostensibly have labor laws with terrible low minimum wage, but they exist. For musicians, they don't exist. You can go gig and play for beer, and you agree to do it, and
that's it. Mm-hmm.
Right? So, that's on the one hand, or you can sign a major record contract, which can be worth, right? If you sign a $500,000 contract, you get $0 until you've recouped that $500,000 on your proceeds. And if your band makes $1 off of the sale of every album in the off like a CD, then you need to sell 500,000 albums before you even turn into the black, right? You're always in the red until you sell 500,000. Well, 500,000 is going gold. Most people don't do that. So it's this belief, like you think you're going to be a rock star and be Jay-Z, Beyonce, billionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
When in actuality, even if you have a hit song, you're not going to make money off of it.
Right. I think that brings up an interesting point, because when I think back to all the times that I played music, I didn't make anything on the recording of my music. Like even when I had the CDs, we didn't sell that many of them. But what we gave away, got people to the show. And then I made the most money I ever made as a musician playing at the Curtain Club, by bringing people out to see me play.
Right.
Well, that's something I hadn't really thought a whole lot about. But as you were talking, I went back to that moment in my head and I was like, huh, he's totally right. I spent all that time learning the songs, writing the songs, doing all this, playing it for people. That's a lot of labor. That's a lot of your life, and I had thought of it almost in the same way. Okay, I've got this copyright. It's mine. No one can take the song from me, but it kind of means nothing if no one's paying for it, some way.
And for the most part, so you got to make a living somehow, right? And if you really want to be a full-time musician, then you have to figure out, well, what are the things that I'm going to do, right? Am I going to have a day job where I work 9 to 5 and gig at night? Am I going to, what most musicians do is they work in food service,
right,
to kind of have more flexible, but then it turns out not to be more flexible and you can't gig anyway, right? Because then it's hitting you at nighttime. Or you work in a guitar shop or teach lessons. And for me, the most money that I made playing music was teaching drum lessons.
Right.
I was making, I was in college and I was making $15 off a half-hour lesson.
Right.
And then aside from that, the other big thing is I was attending Virginia Tech at the time, and we finally worked out a deal with the Alumni Association, and they paid union rate, which was $50 per person per hour that you were playing.
Right.
So here I'm in college. I could go play a 3-hour gig, come walk away with $150, right, teach a handful of lessons, walk away with another $150, and then maybe play in my hip hop group or the prog rock band that I played in and get a little more cash through the week. And I was set, to be 22 years old and having all this cash while I'm in school. But none of that really came from doing what I wanted to do.
Part of it, right? Yeah, doing the touring and all that stuff.
Playing with the good original bands, right?
Mm-hmm,
it was me playing jazz standards at a
right,
alumni banquet where I was half asleep first thing in the morning before a football game.
Sure.
Right? $150, thank you. Now I'm going to go watch the football game. And
yeah. Have a good day, yeah. That's interesting. So kind of talking about, I guess, concerts in general, kind of touching on this last one, with the cancellation of all these concerts and stuff, artists have kind of been pivoting to streaming their events live and kind of trying to make them events, something worthy of watching. How do you think that has gone? How's it been received? I mean, I know I personally, my friends, I know a lot of people who have been doing that because I'm friends with a lot of musicians still, but, I'm watching it with like 30 other people, not like, the 50 or 60 you might have at a show or something like that.
And how are they getting paid from this?
Right. Like, maybe someone donates, that's kind of like how it, kind of has gone, but that's.
Yeah.
So
meanwhile, well, I think that there's this great inequity, right? I mean, the people that need it most, and I think the COVID issue is really touching to musicians because, like I said, I was bringing in lots of cash, and IRS don't come after me. But until I was playing those gigs at the university, it was all under the table.
Mm-hmm.
The university, at that point, I set up as an LLC and was claiming money on my taxes. But until you do that, there's no way to claim taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't make claims, right? It's the small business claims. If you're not set up as an LLC, well, how do you can't get money? If you are, if you're not a worker, then you're not eligible for unemployment. So musicians are caught in this weird in-between space, mm-hmm. right? But the big-time musicians have found a way through it all. They have done things like I remember seeing Garth Brooks and who he's married to.
Oh man, Trisha, is it Trisha Yearwood?
Trisha Yearwood, yeah. They did a thing, and I was like, well, this is cool. And I'm not a Garth Brooks or Trisha Yearwood fan, but I was like, mm-hmm. I'll watch this and see what's going on.
Right.
And then I was like, this is great. And then as time went on, my son loved the Disney sing-alongs, and he was rocking out to it. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm going, oh, wow. So these people are getting paid and promotion. They're all big-name stars. And, yeah, that's what we want to see on TV. Mm-hmm. But what happens to, like, everybody else? Right. So, again, I think
sort of the same thing. Like sort of the same thing between iTunes and all these streaming services. Like the little man just doesn't really break through in the same way that like Post Malone doing a Nirvana tribute might, like.
Yeah. And so there's Katy Perry. Does Katy Perry need streaming revenue from being on there? Probably not.
Not right now. No.
So the people that need are not being met by these things.
Sure. And
I personally think we need to rethink how we value everything.
Sure.
In fact, the way we value most things is by giving money to the bigger stars.
Mm. Yeah. So I guess a little change of it's still related to music. Well, not really music. So this fall, UTA students can start working on a minor in pop culture. You helped put that together. What can they look forward to? What can the students look forward to in that kind of minor?
Well, the way I approached creating this thing was that Arlington wants to be the entertainment capital of North Texas and the world, right? And we have a lot of things going in that direction, from AT&T Stadium to I think there's a bowling museum or something.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
But so there's all this kind of quirky stuff, and it's growing and growing and growing with the new ballpark and the short-lived XFL at the old ballpark.
Yeah, that was fun. We went to a bunch of those games. But yeah, you're right. Like Urban Union, the whole downtown thing is kind of popping off now.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of venues to play at. And what I would like to do is I would like to give students at the university the chance to demonstrate their chops, demonstrate their ability to work within the entertainment industry, to give them a leg up. So it started with my class, Introduction to Popular Culture, and I've been teaching that probably 7 years at this point. It's a pretty popular gen ed class.
Yeah.
We get a lot of students, and we talk about the important role that popular culture plays in our everyday lives. If I was teaching it this week, which I start next week online, we'd be talking about the role that Black Lives Matter activists play in, or musicians play as Black Lives Matter activists, right? How do they go about creating this room for political speech?
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about that kind of thing. We talk about the way popular culture can act as like a collective
consciousness.
Collective consciousness, exactly. And so we come, if you go to a football game or something, you stand in it, it's different than watching it on TV.
Yeah, absolutely.
You feel like you're part of something. And music, it's the same. Sometimes you go to a concert and you're mesmerized and the lights are going and it kind of disorients you and you're loud and you feel in the moment. You might hear a good recording of that show and go, wow, that was terrible.
Right.
Why
but
did
in the
I
moment,
love that so much?
Right, yeah. But in the moment, you're just in it, and it feels like you said, part of something even bigger than just yourself.
Exactly. So that's the kind of thing we look at, and so the pop culture minor teaches both how to work within these different industry niches and how to think about the impact of popular culture on our everyday life.
Sounds like a fun. I wish that I had been. I graduated in 2017, so not 2017, 2013. I'm trying to look at my diploma, but it's such small print I can't even read it up there.
That was my first year here.
So I was like ready to get out of there at that point. But that sounds like a class that if I had heard about it, I definitely would have been like, I'd like to see what this is all about, because I do feel pretty similar about how pop culture, it kind of just that whole makes you part of something bigger. And like, you can talk about that with someone. If you were connected with someone a state away who also listened to the same band, like you have that instant connection, like, oh, dude, you love the Dropkick Murphys? Cool, me too. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Or and outside of music, mainly what I talk about is music. But there's also an issue of kind of water cooler conversations.
Yeah.
Things you might not feel comfortable passing judgment or discussing, because, if your friend had a one-night stand like somebody in the office had a one-night stand, you wouldn't want to be talking at the water cooler about them. It could be bad, right?
Right.
But you could talk about something you saw on a television show the night before, and you're having that conversation, and you're not judging a person that's in the room. You're judging some fictional character.
You're judging George Costanza for being a crazy person, yeah. Or
the big one, I don't know if you remember this at all. I was pretty young when it happened, was Murphy Brown. There was this whole big flack because she decided, fictional character decided to have a child as a single mother. Yeah. And at the time, the vice president, Dan Quayle, said, oh, this is immoral. And it created a conversation about something.
Yeah.
And today, nearly 30 years later, that's much more acceptable.
Yeah.
So it opens these things up and allows us to discuss them.
So we have one last question that we ask all of our guests. We have a segment called Determinant of Toppings. It's trying to find the best pizza place in Arlington. Do you have a favorite pizza place in Arlington?
That's a tough one because
agreed.
this is my 8th year in Arlington. I must say I used to live down the street from Prespa's.
Okay.
And after we tried some, my wife is from Jersey. My family's from Philly. We're deep into that kind of, we're pizza people.
Right.
And Prespa's reminded us a lot more of that kind of New York, Philadelphia style pizza. So Prespa's definitely gets 2 thumbs up from me.
Awesome. Yeah.
What is yours? Do you have any recommendation?
We have not been to Prespa's, but it is on the list. COVID really threw a wrench in us getting together and going to pizza restaurants. So it is on the list. So I'm excited to try it because hearing that recommendation is really great. I think my favorite personally is probably Old School on Abram. But with
Old School is good.
Honorable mention to like Corky's in South Arlington, that wood-fired pizza, which is different than Old School, different than like a New York style, like Beck's Needs a Pizza.
Well, Precipice is more along the lines of a Corky's.
Oh, okay, great.
So you're kind of moving in that direction with that.
Good. I think Precipice is actually closer to me than Corky's, so that also that makes me good.
There's two Precipice.
Are there? Really?
Yes.
I only knew of the one on is it Green Oaks, like in north almost Grand Prairie?
No, the one is off of Arkansas, close to Veterans Park.
Okay.
And the other one is the one I lived by. It's at the intersection of Sublet and 287.
Okay. I'm thinking of Spazios is what I was thinking of. That Precipice was one of the ones that we were like, South Arlington needs some love. We need to go down there and have some pizza down there. So
I must recommend it. But now I'm in North Arlington.
Okay.
And I was eyeing, all the time I've been at UTA, I've never had Nizza Pizza because it was down there. But now there's one like couple blocks from where I live.
So there's two Nizza Pizzas. There's the one on Cooper, and then the one on Lamar. That one on Lamar is really excellent, really, really great. Okay. And also the owner is he's a super nice guy. Like I think he's from Brooklyn. So like he definitely like you walk in and it feels it's just a really inviting atmosphere. And he's also great food. We recommend that place highly.
Well, I will definitely check that one out because it's right down the street from me now.
Cool. All right. Well, is there anything that you'd like to have people want to get in touch with you about the program you do at UTA or about your book or about any of the music detour stuff?
Absolutely. My email is darditi@uta.edu. I'm happy to talk to anybody about anything, and I love what you're doing. It's great to, get out there and talk about my expertise on music, and it was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure that we'll have you back. We actually have a 5-timers jacket like on SNL. This doesn't exist yet, but we're talking about it. We've got a couple people at 3 already. So
maybe a 5-timers pizza. You get the 5 and we split a pizza and talk over it. I would be game for that.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll look forward to all the stuff that you're doing and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
I'm here with Craig Cummings, the water dude from Arlington Water Utilities. How are you today?
I'm doing great, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. So the Arlington Water Utilities recently won an award from the Granicus Digital Government Awards in the Citizen Service category for the Know Your H2O website. What goes into winning this award, and what was it like winning?
Well, it was a nice recognition for what we've done, probably over the last year and a half, and that is to take basically a homegrown website and really enhance it based upon feedback we got from our customers, plus, just kind of the brainstorming that we had here in the office. So we've even done some follow-up surveys through a tool called SurveyMonkey to find out, for instance, for folks who have signed up, for high bills or high usage alerts, or we've started sending out emails to people who have continuous usage that may be indicative of leak. And we wanted to get their feedback, and we refined some of the aspects of both of those programs based upon that feedback we got from customers. But the whole idea is to allow our customers to kind of have a one-stop location to get a lot of information about their city services bill, but also, some useful things like in North Texas, we're heavy irrigators. and irrigation is driven largely by weather, so we put some weather information on our website, and that's relatively new. We have temperature and rainfall. And, if you look at that and try to figure out where you're in the city, you can perhaps adjust your irrigation schedules based upon the amount of precipitation we've had.
Right. Well, also congratulations for the award, by the way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So what else could you tell us about the Know Your H2O website?
Well, like I said, it's designed to be very user-friendly. It's designed to allow customers to utilize things that haven't been available before. It primarily is geared towards those customers that have the new AMI meters or the advanced metering infrastructure. A lot of people call them smart meters. They're really not smart meters. It's the same old meter that we had before. The only thing that's different, instead of a guy standing there putting data in a book, we just now take that very same data and send it up by radio waves back to our office. So it's really using metering radio technology with the meter to get us those particular readings. But with that, we can show people what their watering trends are, and we're rolling out right now actual daily or hourly, if you will, usage. So if somebody wanted to see exactly when their irrigation turns on at 3 o'clock in the morning, they can see that, and they can see for that hour that zone 1 in their system's running, how many gallons has gone through it. So a lot of things like that are there to be very user-friendly.
Very nice. So for the longest time, people have said Arlington water tastes the best in the Metroplex. What is it about Arlington water that, in fact, is the best?
Well, we have kind of been leaders with respect to technology. I mean, we're right next door to UTA. We've worked with them on some particular projects. But in particular, we knew that we had some taste and odor problems historically here with Lake Arlington. Now, we do get water from other sources. The water in Lake Arlington is nowhere near enough to supply the city, so we get most of our water from 2 reservoirs to the southeast of us, Richland Chambers and Cedar Creek, and it's pumped about 80 miles up here. And if we're seeing Lake Arlington go down, we actually put water into Lake Arlington from those other reservoirs. A lot of folks don't realize that. Typically in the summertime, we're bypassing some water into Lake Arlington, but our other plant, John Kabbalah plant, which is kind of to the southeast there of the city, down by Mansfield, we actually take water directly off of that pipeline that comes from about 80 miles away. But with that taste and odor that we've had in the past, we started looking at solutions, and the first thing we landed on was ozone, and we were a leader in putting ozone in. And then from ozone, we went to what's known as biologically active filters. When I started in this business, you tried to get all the bugs out of the system or the bacteria. What we have found over time is some bacteria are very, very beneficial in water treatment, not only removing taste and odors, but also a lot of other compounds. They just use that kind of as food. So they're beneficial. So we have those biologically active filters. And the last thing we've done at our Pierce Birch plant is we put in hydrogen peroxide. You probably have heard about that to help whiten people's teeth. Well, it's very, very effective, particularly when used with ozone. It really kind of gives ozone a real kick. It's like ozone on steroids, and it does a very good job of destroying a lot of organic compounds. So it's kind of those kind of aspects of the water treatment process. And then we make sure we've got a lot of water moving through our distribution system, because that's another reason why water can taste better, or perhaps worse, is if it's in the system for a very long time. So we try our very best to design our system to keep the water circulating, to keep it fresh out there.
Wow, very nice. So it's almost summertime, which means less rain and more heat. For those with sprinkler systems, what can they do to make sure they don't have a leak and to make sure that their bill isn't as high as the temperatures are?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is that they utilize our website, because what we can offer there is we have what's known as a high usage alert. And that's basically if a customer, and this is all done by a computer at night, we don't have people looking at individual accounts, it's looking at every one of our accounts, and it's looking at those particularly that have the AMI meters, which is about 2/3 of our system right now. Roughly 65,000 of the 100,000 or so accounts we have, we've transitioned to that, and we've got about 3 years left of changing those meters out. But what we do, those accounts that do have those AMI meters, is we look at the usage, and if they're using 3 gallons per hour for 48 hours straight, that indicates to us that could be something as simple as a leak in the toilet where who hasn't gone and jiggled the toilet handle to stop that little persistent leak? Or it could be a drip in a shower in a bathroom that you don't typically use. It could be a leak in the irrigation system that's running, and it's in the back corner of your lot that you don't get to very often until you mow the lawn. Those are the kind of things that we send automatic emails out to folks that have an email address with us. And if they don't want to get the email, they can opt out of the program. But we've got very good reviews about that because folks have called and said, boy, oh boy, I never knew it. I had a slab leak, and I thought my bill was higher, but, it didn't seem crazy high. Well, leaks never get better. So that tool is very effective in letting people know that, hey, you have a possible leak. Now, the other thing they can do on the website there to kind of contain the cost is set a high bill or a high usage alert. If you don't want to pay over X dollars, in a given billing period or roughly month, then put in that dollar amount. What our system will do is it will look at your usage through the month, and it uses math, an algorithm that says if you're using this in the first 3 days and we extrapolate that out for the full 30 days of this billing period, you're going to be over that target of $100 or whatever you said, and it will send you an alert. And it'll say, hey, you better cut back, or the trend you're on, you'll be over your $100. Maybe something where it's a leak, or it could very well be that you just are watering more than what you thought you were, and you might want to dial that back a little bit. That's very useful. Now, it's based upon dollar value of the total bill. You can plug that in, or if you just want to do it on water usage alone, you can do that as well. We give you 2 different options, but we'll send those alerts out to say you're going to exceed that. And again, the feedback we've gotten on that is, hey, this has been very helpful. Folks, just, I don't want to exceed this amount, and I want to know when I'm trending towards that.
Very nice. Also on July 18th, the Arlington Public Library and the Tarrant Regional Water District is hosting a care and repair workshop at 10 a.m. People can sign up at arlingtonsprinkler.eventbrite.com in case you guys want to know what to do with your sprinklers and make sure that you can check the leaks and everything like that.
And we typically will work, Tarrant Regional Water District is our water supplier. I talked about those reservoirs to the southeast. We buy 100% of our water, even the water in Lake Arlington, we pay them for because the water typically will be bypassed from that pipeline to get into Lake Arlington. But we're part of that group. The biggest customer there is Fort Worth, and there's some other ones, Mansfield and others. But we buy water off of that pipeline. But because we're all interested in water conservation in North Texas, we go together on these type of programs, and we've partnered with Tarrant Regional Water District on these kind of repair workshops. And, you can do irrigation systems. We've done indoor plumbing, and it's amazing where we've taken, folks that have never even taken the back off the toilet tank, and we'll have a master plumber there. And he'll show them how to, for instance, replace the little flapper, which is notorious for leaking over time. Mm-hmm. And, it's about a $10 repair. You can buy them at Lowe's, and it's really homeowner friendly, and it takes about 15 minutes. And, people will do that, and what a sense of accomplishment. Plus, sometimes they just stop those little leaks that you don't realize, and if you really don't hear it, then, you don't realize it, but that leak is running 24/7, 365, so it can add up.
Oh, no, I've had that toilet issue myself, and I've definitely had to take the back off, and, sometimes that flap will just come just a little bit off that hole, and it's not full, and you'll get that running sound, and so I've definitely had that situation before.
Most people have. It's one of those things. It's kind of like home ownership 101. But,
right.
People who are new to buying a home, or, folks who have never done that before, maybe their husband did it and he's passed on. Now they've learned that skill. So we try to keep our customers aware. The whole idea, if you look at the website as a whole, it's really to put information and educate our customers, put information in their hands and educate them about making wise water choices.
Right. So we have a segment on this show called the Tournament of Toppings. We're trying to find the best pizza in Arlington. What is your favorite pizza place in Arlington?
I'm sorry, the favorite what
pizza
place?
Pizza place.
Pizza.
Yes, sir.
I'm from Illinois, and I grew up not too far from Chicago. So the deep dish, I'm trying to think here in Arlington. I think it's Geno's.
Yes, sir.
That's up by the ballpark. Love the deep dish, So it's a favorite of mine and my wife's, and it's something that is definitely a big meal. But love that.
Yeah, there used to be one on Matlock and Sublet. It was a Chicago corner. They're no longer there, but that was very good for deep dish for a little while.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You look at different parts of the country. You get those big slices in New York. You roll them up. I don't know. It's kind of a regional thing, but there's just something about that deep dish, because you get a whole lot of cheese and a whole lot of other toppings in there.
Oh, it's a meal on its own. If you have more than 2 pizzas, then you're a champion.
You're exactly right.
So with people spending more time at home, their bills also might be higher. What are some tips that they can do to help lower their bills while they're home?
Well, first thing, again, that I mentioned is certainly be aware of your water system. And, really by that I mean if you're irrigating, irrigation systems, we're all creatures of habit. So we typically, maybe in the fall we'll shut it off and then turn it back on in the spring. And we may not necessarily check the settings on it. We may not necessarily check that all the heads in the yard are working the way they're supposed to. So either you can do that yourself, simply turn your system on manual, each zone, and check that the heads are popping up and, they're not spraying the driveway or the street, or they're still there and haven't been broken off by, let's say, a lawnmower. Because when they turn on, most people are deep asleep. So you wouldn't know about that. So check it during the day, or have a professional do it. We do have a limited number of sign-ups for irrigation checkups that we, again, with Tarrant Regional Water District, will do a completely free sprinkler evaluation. You can go online and get information. Just go to water online at arlingtontx.gov, and you'll be able to check that information out. They'll tell you where to sign up, and it's a first come first served basis, but certainly an irrigation check is very important. Make sure your toilets aren't running. If you have any leaks that you're aware of, understand that leaks run 24/7, so get it fixed, even if it's just a relatively small drip in a faucet. And a big thing that a lot of people don't understand is utilize what we call average winter consumption. And what average winter consumption is it's a bit of a hard concept for people to understand, but it's really designed to be something of a fairness kind of billing prospect. To explain that, every year in the months of November, December, January, February, we actually will look at the usage that is at a home when typically that home would not be irrigating. And that's the water usage. If we average 3 of those months, throw out the high one, and we average those 3, we come up with what's known as average winter consumption. Well, why do we do that? Well, because when people start irrigating in the summertime, most irrigation systems in Arlington are just on the one water system that goes to the house and the irrigation system. So 100% of the water for irrigating and the home goes through one water meter. We don't have a wastewater meter, so how do we bill people for the wastewater usage? Well, it certainly wouldn't be fair in the summertime to bill them for all the water that went to the water meter, because a lot of it's going on the lawn and it's not going to the sewer plant. So what we have done is said, let's look back to the wintertime, get that average, and then use that in the summer, so that's all you'll pay. If you watch your usage in the wintertime and keep that average winter consumption low, you'll pay a much lower sewer bill in the summertime. Because the fact of the matter is, if you high average winter consumption, or you're just using the city average, it might be a couple of units higher, and by units I mean 1,000 gallons of use, than what it would be if you watched your usage in the wintertime months. It's just trying to figure out a way to make sure that customers are not paying for water that's going through their irrigation system. And that's really the best method we've come up with. Most utilities in North Texas use the same methodology. It's called different things in different places. We call it average winter consumption, and it's something that everybody should take a look at. You can get information about that on our website as well, but it's very critical to keep an eye on that. And then, ultimately, just be a wise consumer when it comes to water usage, and signing up for that high bill or high usage alert. And then if you do get an email from us that says, hey, you've had this kind of consumption for 48 hours straight, you should look into it. Now, you can do it yourself. You don't have to call a plumber, but maybe the kids left the hose on in the backyard and you just didn't know about it. That's what that's designed to do. It's really kind of just a reminder. You may have been watering plants for those 48 hours. Who knows? But we're just giving you a little nudge to say, hey, check your system. You might have a leak somewhere.
That's Craig, thank you very much for your time. And what is that website again, so you can actually go see the award-winning website?
It is, well, you can go to, let's see, I think it's Water Billing Online, wateronline.arlingtontx.gov.
There we go. Yeah. So, Craig, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to doing this again.
All right. Thank you, John. Very nice talking to you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Tag us and send those pictures over to us on Facebook, Arlington Citizen Media, Twitter, ATX Citizen Media. Tag us on Instagram, Arlington Citizen Media, and send those pictures the old-fashioned way. Email arlingtoncitizenmedia@gmail.com. Also go to our website, www.arlingtoncitizenmedia.com. Don't forget to subscribe and give those 5-star reviews of the downtown at Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and also hit us on SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and YouTube.
And
eat local, drink local.
And go rediscover your city.